Guys, we're back. Took a nice little quick break. We've got 3 more matchups to go, plus our best and worst of the week. Let's dive right into it here, Benny. It's going to be Chris Levy. Jose told a story against Josh Haber. Well, I'll be damned. And Chris gets another solid win here, 11-6. Close categories this week. Chris wins by 2 triples. Josh wins by a run, a double, and an RBI. And they tied in strikeouts, errors, losses, and walks given up by a pitcher. For Chris on his bench this week, he goes 8 for 39. That's a 205 batting average. 5 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, an RBI, a steal, 10 walks, 6 strikeouts, and an error. The runs and the double are what hurts because he lost both of those by 1. He only hit 205 on the bench, so trying to find it is a little bit difficult. However, Hunter Pence went 1 for 3 on Tuesday with a double and a steal and a walk, and Aristides Aquino went 0 for 4 at utility. The unfortunate part is you're probably not going to bench this ridiculously hot rookie that just came up. So,
Did he strike out in that game, Aquino?
He may have. Let me take a look.
And the same.
He only had 4 on the week. He only had 4 on the week. He did not strike out that day.
And did Pence?
Pence did not either. Pence only had 2 strikeouts all week, so that's kind of a wash.
Right. No, but I'm just saying, if Pence did strike out, and even though, the 0 for happened, having no strikeouts actually benefits him more because they end up tying that stat.
Right. The play that really is key here, it was on Saturday. Dan Vogelback goes, looks like 1 for 3, a run, a double, a walk, and a strikeout. However, he played Miguel Cabrera at first base, who went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. That's your play.
Yeah, no, that flips a ton. Yeah, for sure.
That's it right there. For his moves, he added Jake Lamb, who hit a homer for him. That was fantastic. He streamed Jay Happ, who I think he's probably going to hang on to at this point. A solid starter for the Yankees if he can get himself righted. He's been pretty bad lately, but looks like he might be coming around after this start in Baltimore. 5 innings, a win, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 3.60 ERA, and 180 WHIP. He also streamed Vince Velasquez, who wasn't as good. It looks like he maxed out his moves this week, adding Juan Lagares and Jorge Alfaro late on Sunday. By and large, it's just a solid win for him. He led basically the whole way. He led 13-5 going into Sunday. Looks like he lost a couple of categories there. But at the end of the day, it's another solid win. It holds him in 7th place. He's right on the outside looking in, 4 back on Jimmy Dunlap. So he's well within striking range of making the playoffs here and coming back from that 18-0 loss early in the season.
Yeah, he's just done an awesome job climbing back. He was one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team, for a spot in the middle of the season. He went through with some great managing, and he did more of the same here. I felt like he knew what he was up against, and he was facing a team that isn't going to do a ton. I would say, what did Josh make? Maybe 5 moves at, most, maybe 6. So, he competes against that. He's like, you know what? Let me make sure that I hold on to strikeouts. Let me hold on to innings pitched. Let me try to grab wins. And in the process of doing all that and jumping after all these extreme starts, he still held down a 4.15 ERA. Not terrific, but certainly a winnable type of ERA.
Competitive.
A 1.40 WHIP. It's okay, but when you're playing up against the opponent, you just got to play against those numbers.
Exactly.
So, you can take more chances, when you know that the other team isn't producing as well. So, he took advantage of what his opponent was. He, unfortunately, is running into a team that has an awesome offense.
Yeah.
Josh's offense seems to bring it every single week. If Josh, paid attention day to day on what his team could do, then he would have collected at least 25, 30 more stats. He might be in this thing.
Yeah,
but that's
absolutely
not the case. It's just like Chris was playing against a guy that he knew he had to beat, and he almost doubled him up, but he took care of business. So good job. I tip my cap on the fact that on Sunday he benched all his pitchers so that he avoided losing walks. He did. All of those pitchers on Sunday gave up at least a walk, and he would have lost that category instead of tying it.
Yep.
He avoided losing losses the same way. So good management from him this week. Obviously playing not against a strong day-to-day manager, but you got to beat those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. For Josh this week, you hit the nail on the head. If he was paying more attention, he'd be able to get a lot more stats here. And we go right back to everything we've talked about basically all season, right? He went 17 for 36 on his bench. It's a 472 average, 11 runs, 6 doubles, a triple, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. None of that matters at the end of the day because...
Yeah, amazingly.
Yeah.
What was that batting average again?
That's a 472 batting average. It's damn near 500.
Oh,
1 hit away from 500.
How many, Joe?
17 for 36.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I could run it all down. Adam Eaton 2 for 5 on Wednesday. Kurt Suzuki 4 for 7 on Saturday. 2 runs and 2 doubles. Yan Gomes was at catcher because we know about this Kurt Suzuki Yan Gomes bullshit. Adam Eaton that same game 4 for 8, a homer, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. And we talked about Adam Eaton.
None of it mattered. I think the only thing that maybe he probably wins strikeouts maybe if he flips one other thing. But then again, maybe Kurt Suzuki actually struck out on that Saturday and he would have lost strikeouts, so it ends up helping him.
He did not strike out that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even still, I'm just saying, it's just amazing that almost none of this would have mattered.
Yeah, it's insane. The thing about Adam Eaton, and I said this last week, he's kind of the odd man out in this team. When he went 4 for 8 on Saturday, his outfield, Eaton was on the bench, his outfield was Marcell Ozuna, Bryce Harper, JD Martinez. You're not sitting any of those guys. Freddie Freeman was the utility guy, and Eric Hosmer was at first base. You're not sitting any of those 5 guys. The unfortunate part is that Ozuna, Harper, and JD Martinez went 1 for 11 with 5 strikeouts that day. So it's rough to see that. But these guys are, top-notch players, and Eaton is a nice complementary piece. It's rough to see. Every day he could be filtering Eaton in more, especially now considering how hot he's been lately. But it's rough when you look at an outfield like that. You hit on his moves this week. You said he might have done 5 or 6. Only 1. He dropped Trent Thornton, picked up Mike Leake. Mike Leake, 6 innings, 3 homers, 3 strikeouts, 6 ERA. Wasn't a good stream. Let's go to key players, and then there's something really big I want to hit on. Key players for Chris this week. We're going to hit Aristides Aquino again. He only hit 192 with a 276 on base, 5 runs, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. We kind of saw that this kid would come back down to earth. He can't hit a home run every day, but he's still homering. He's got up to 11 homers in 15 games. It's just insane. And it's a really nice shot in the arm for this team. He picked up David Fletcher as well, who was really good for him. 350 average, 409 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. He won the triples category, so it's good to hit on him. And Trevor Story, the namesake of the team, 500 average, 586 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Pitching-wise, he did all right.
I don't know if we can ignore Michael Brantley, though.
Brantley had a ridiculous week as well. 519, 522, 7 runs.
552.
Yes, 552 on base. 7 runs, 5 doubles, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. I've said it before about him. How does he end up on Houston in that lineup? He's absolutely reaping the benefits. He's going to make a ton of money this offseason. He's got 74 RBIs, and he's like the 3 hitter in that lineup nowadays.
Yeah.
Just silly that they get this guy.
I honestly, though, I didn't expect him to put up these kinds of numbers this year because he gets injured pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
I held him one year where, the home runs, they kind of come in spurts, and then all of a sudden he won't hit one for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
He'll generally just have all these like slap kind of hits that I recall for Cleveland, trying to like just poking up the middle kinds of things. There's not a ton of slugging, maybe some down the line doubles kind of, but he just never seemed like that kind of hitter. He'll hit around 300, but not a ton of slugging. But those numbers are up this year, and It might just because, like you're saying, that on the Houston lineup, there are all these guys that can't see good pitches to hit. Like, someone is going to have to hunt the fastball, and someone's going to get it.
Yeah, and it seems to be a different guy every day, but Michael Brantley seems to be that guy more times than not this season. Pitching-wise for Chris, Archie Bradley got him a save in 2 innings and 3 relief appearances. It wasn't good. He got a 9 ERA, but a .50 whip. The reason I highlight him is the relief appearances and the saves. Chris clean swept the pitching categories. They tied in losses and walks. Otherwise, he swept the entire pitching categories. Lucas Giolito is a big part of that as well. 6 innings, a win, a homer, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, a 1.50 whip. The start came against the Angels in Anaheim. It's his third straight start of 6 innings or more and 8 or more strikeouts. Last start against Oakland was 13 strikeouts. This one's 11. And he goes against Minnesota on Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see what he does there. Finally, he streamed a kid by the name of Logan Webb, starter for the San Francisco Giants. And I had my eye on this start as well. 5 innings, the win, a walk, 7 strikeouts, a 1.80 ERA, a 1.20 whip. Just a really solid start to throw in there. The 5 innings actually gives him the win in innings, along with the win and the strikeouts. And, just a really well-managed pitching week from Chris this week, even though the results don't necessarily show as great as you would like in the ERA and whip department. Strikeouts is competitive. The walks you don't necessarily like, and that contributes to the whip being as high as it is. But only 5 homers in 56 innings, 9 wins. That'll play every single week.
Yeah, and sometimes that ERA will as well, because it's just right in that margin of like the low 4s that you could just, if your opponent tries to just get greedy, trying to go for the innings, he'll blow his ERA, he'll blow his whip.
Yep.
Like you said, the walks makes the whip a little higher than you'd like, but yeah, great managing all around when the pitching, and like you said, like what doesn't show at the end is the score. You know what I mean? Because when you have a good enough management like type of week from your pitching, then you hope that like your hitting will contribute enough, and when you bat 282 like Chris did, you kind of expect to win a good amount of the offensive stats. He actually comes up only winning 3 offensive stats, and one of them is triples, which is just like kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
So like, it's just amazing that he fortunately hit 18 bombs.
Yeah.
But like, that's all he really had to show for it with his, with his slugging, with his offense. It's just one category really, and I guess the walks too. But it's just tough when you like. I talked about this in the beginning of the show, Joe. When you like bring it offensively and you walk into the juggernaut, and that's what Josh has been week to week, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Chris hits 18 home runs and loses RBIs because he only has 34 RBIs. Like, he got a ton of homers, but they were just so many solo shots that they end up, not, I mean, at the end of the day, they matter, but they don't matter as much as you would really want them to.
No. And I wonder if we had OPS as a stat, who would have actually won that stat? Because Chris has more walks, by 6 more walks. He only has 1 less double. He's got the 2 triples. I think if we had OPS as a stat, Chris actually gets to win that one as well. So
probably.
Just mention.
Yeah, probably. We'll jump to Josh's offense. He had a great offensive week, like we were talking about. Bryce Harper went 333 with a 417 on base, 6 runs, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Gio Urshela, where the hell did this kid come from? 457 average and on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs, 7 strikeouts. And finally, JD Martinez, 348, 429 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. This doesn't even hit on, a guy like Scooter Gennett, who hit 318 this week, Eric Hosmer, who hit 450 for him. Freddie Freeman had a bad week, but still hit 2 homers with 3 RBIs. The offense came to play for Josh. He hit 336 for the week, 35 RBIs, 4 steals, 17 doubles. All of these things that can absolutely play week in and week out. The one thing
273 batting average. 275 batting average from Josh overall. He's tied with Sherman for second best behind you at 276. When you're batting 275 and that's a team that's not checking as much, that's impressive. And it seems to have a lot of guys that are producing this year. It's just it is one of those weeks where I think Chris could have definitely grabbed at least 13 stats here, and it's I don't know how you feel about this, but where this guy's season stands going forward.
Let me talk about Sunday first, and then I've got something interesting that's coming up in our league.
Sunday.
So Sunday, coming into Sunday, Chris led it 13-5, and it ends up being 11-6. And where does that come from? Josh hung on to runs because they both scored 4 apiece. Josh ties doubles. He got 5 doubles on Sunday, and Chris only got 1. Josh flipped RBIs because he got 4, and Chris only got 1. And Chris's team...
So Chris didn't really bring it as much as he could have, I guess, on Sunday.
Yeah. Chris ends up tying strikeouts because he got 4 more than Josh there. So there were things to be left on the table, but when it comes right down to it, Sunday was the day for Josh or for Chris to really put the nail in the hammer or the nail in the coffin, and didn't do it.
Yeah.
His entire team hit 167 that day, 10 strikeouts. Like I said, only the 1 RBI, no homers, only a double. It just was a bad day for him.
Full lineup?
Yeah, he had an absolutely full lineup. Fletcher went 0 for 4. Aquino went 0 for 2 with 2 walks. Brantley went 2 for 4. Story went 1 for 4 with the only RBI and 3 strikeouts. Altuve went 0 for 4 with a steal and a walk. Escobar went 1 for 4 with the double. It was just a bad day all around for him. He left Hunter Pence on the bench 3 for 4, but he didn't do anything. He got a walk and a run. It was a bad day offensively, and it came at the wrong date.
Yeah.
You touched on things going forward, and this is where things are going to get really, really interesting. So, Chris stands right now at 7th place, 4 games back of Jimmy Dunlap for 6th. Chris this week faces Frank, who could play spoiler. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that everything's even. Both teams end up 500. They're 10-10 against their opponents because Jimmy has another spoiler team in Andy. So both of those teams, they end up, again, 4 games apart for the 6-7 spot. You know what happens in week 21?
They're up against each other.
They play each other. That's going to be a huge matchup. If everything remains even
if 500 doesn't happen, even if one wins by a little, one loses by a little, they're still close enough that to make 21 matter. As long as neither one of them gets blown out this week, it just makes 21 much more exciting.
Yeah. And here's the thing: we're not rooting against the spoilers here. We'd like to see Andy take down Jimmy and make this even more interesting. And if Frank can kick Chris down. Well, okay, Mike Sherman's coming, or Bobby might get a good week. If those things happen, these guys are coming in. It's gonna be a crazy 2 weeks specifically for these 2 owners because of these matchups that are coming.
Yeah, and I love the crap out of Frank, but I will say that just what's cooler for the league is for Chris. And I would say this to Frank's face. I think, although I want Frank to win for Frank because I love Frank,
Mm-hmm.
but I want Chris to win for the excitement of the league, to
Absolutely.
make the league more interesting going forward. So that's just the truth and the fact of the matter of it.
I agree.
And meanwhile, Chris holding on here with the offensive categories: 11-8 in runs, 11-7 in doubles, 6-4 in triples, 10-8 in home runs. Okay, 8-10 in RBIs, 3-12 in stolen bases, 6-11 in walks, but 13-5 in strikeouts, 9-7 in errors, 8-11 in average, 8-11 in on-base percentage. Well, it started off pretty good, kind of right in the middle there, huh, Joe?
Yeah, pretty much. He's right where the stats are showing him to be, right about 500.
Right.
Right about in the middle of the standings, and he's sitting in 7th.
Right.
That's,
Right. As far as the pitching, 12-7 in innings pitched, 8-5 in wins, 7-10 in losses, complete games 3-3, 10-5 in saves, 10-8 in home runs given up, 9-9 in walks given up, 13-6 in strikeouts, 11-8 in ERA, 10-9 whip, 7-10 in relief appearances. Maybe a little bit better.
A little bit better in the pitching side, which helps elevate him just a bit. But again, it's fairly in the middle.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens going forward for Josh. His schedule finishes out with his brother this week, James McCloskey, and then James Santangelo in week 22. He does have an opportunity to do a little bit more spoiling. We'll see if that's possible. He did get back-to-back wins against playoff teams and myself and Jason Ashby in 13 and 14, but that's now almost 2 months ago. So we'll see where we stand come next week with him. With that, we'll jump to what I consider a really it was almost a spoiler match this week, Benny. It was Mike Sherman taking on Nick Homan, and they end up in a 9-9 tie. This was a really competitive matchup all week. And, nobody ever had more than a 3-category advantage. It was 9-8 for coming out of Friday. It was 9-8 in Nick's favor. After Saturday, it was 9-8 in Sherman's favor, and they finished 9-9. Absolutely incredible matchup to see. Close categories this week. Mike wins by a double and 2 steals and a win. Nick wins by 3 ticks in the on-base percentage, 2 saves, 2 walks by a pitcher. They tie in triples, homers, and losses. For Mike on his bench this week, it's another week where Mike doesn't do a whole lot as far as his bench is concerned. He goes 3 for 5 with a run, a double, an RBI, and a walk. That's it. It was basically one Mike Tauchman bench that he should have played over Jeff McNeil. That at the end of the day doesn't really matter either, because there was no homers, there was nothing, there was no triples, there was nothing like that.
Well, the on-base percentage.
Sure.
One that you can, I guess, but like how many for how many was Mike? What was the?
So Tauchman was 2 for 3 with a double, an RBI, and a walk. So call it 3 for 4. And McNeil was 1 for 5.
Okay, that's one. But I'm saying in general, what was his bench? What was the batting average?
3 for 5. It's a 600 batting average.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
So I mean, he has such a short bench. You really can't critique it that much.
Right.
The one crazy thing that I noticed in this game is that Wade Davis not only blew the save, he basically lost the Rockies the game. It's like, come on, like he was so horrendous. The Marlins have a 2-run lead now going into the bottom of the 9th, and somehow the Rockies, on the backs of my brother's teammates, start to shellac the ball, and they tie the game, and that gets Wade Davis off the schneid for the loss.
Mm-hmm.
That loss unties losses and gives Mike Sherman the 10-9 win. Unbelievably, the Rockies come back, stop that loss from happening, and as a result, it's tied. So that was the craziest thing that I actually noticed of the whole week, aside from the fact that Alonso, tying his home run to it so that Mike ties that category.
Yep.
And, obviously, you and I are very excited about Pete reaching 40 yesterday.
Love Pete.
Breaking that National League record. So, like you said, this is incredibly competitive. It's not like Nick was throwing this away. Nick was making a couple of moves, I noticed. And, great battle of chess here.
Absolutely.
Mike, Does Mike do what he needed to do? That I guess remains to be seen, because he might have needed a more decisive decision here in order for him to reach that 6th spot.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. The one thing I noticed, and I even messaged Mike about this, Mike's got Wilson Ramos, right? And Wilson Ramos is a great offensive catcher, and he's been kind of slumping a bit this week. Maybe not in the average department, but in the power department, you kind of expect to at least have something from him. He didn't get anything from him this week. I was lining up because I dropped Jorge Alfaro, and I'm going with Jesus Christ, I'm blanking. I'm going with the catcher I have, Garver. And I'm like, okay, I might need a backup because the Twins only have like 5 games this week, and he only plays like every 2 out of every 3. So I'm lining up this kid named Dom Nunez. Now, Dom Nunez is their top catching prospect for the Rockies. He's going to play in, obviously, Colorado. And they just got rid of Chris Iannetta in order to make room for him. Well, I'm like, okay, I'm going to line this guy up. I'm going to pick him up in the morning. And I get up, and Mike Sherman's already grabbed him. And I messaged him. I was like,
"How did he get him?"
Well, he actually dropped him back the next day. But it's one of those cases of like, you see this guy go off the board, and I think he homered that day, or something. I find the time for you exactly.
I'm curious if it's one of those things that happened at like 4 a.m. You didn't see it coming, like.
It was 10 a.m. actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's something that you weren't like.
I wasn't losing my head over.
On. You didn't think anyone was going after it.
Right. And here, I thought this kid was going to be the everyday starter at that point. He's only started 2 games since he got called up. And, I'm not so broken up about it. But it just plays to the depth of this league where, some little-known catching prospect that I'm looking at for a backup catcher is snagged by a guy in the race that I'm like, no, you can't have him, because if he goes off in Colorado, I'm going to be so bad. Since then, he was picked up again by Nick in the same week. So this guy played on both teams this week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was certainly. Now, here's the other thing that Mike is probably a bit upset about. He just lost Fernando Tatis for the season. Tatis is out with a back injury. They're shutting him down. And you know what? The Padres don't have anything to play for. This kid is their future. There's no reason to push him back for, the final 2 or 3 weeks in September when they're not playing for anything. It hurts Mike substantially because now he has to play a situation where he moves Machado or Glaber to short, and Danny Santana is now like every day in his lineup. Maybe
I'm sure that he does have a lot of shortstops though, so at least that position is secured, and maybe it's a little easier to find the other position if he needs to in free agency.
Right. He had to go grab Evan Longoria because of days off or matchups or what have you. Longoria is so not what he used to be. He's just another guy at this point. Only hitting 250, 15 homers. The rest of the week was what it was for him. He only made one other move. I think he made about 8, maybe 9 moves, in case you're wondering. He held off Nick and gets the tie and moves on to the next week, where he's hoping to get healthy again and get a good win this week. The problem is he's about to face this gauntlet in order to get in of you, me, Bobby, and me, in that order.
Right, and as far as this week goes, one that you didn't mention that I escaped for this week is Jeff McNeil won't play this whole week.
Exactly.
So I avoid McNeil, I avoid Tatis, and I definitely avoid, because Wilson Ramos, the Mets don't have a game today, but then, he doesn't always catch DeGrom or Noah.
Right.
So I might only have to deal with Ramos for about 3 or 4 days. So I think I definitely kind of get to escape one, especially when I kind of know my opponent is going to stick with a short lineup. Maybe I can use that against them. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because it's a case of the schedule is going to dictate how well he's able to match up against you. He's certainly got a decent. Well, he doesn't have a decent bullpen anymore. He had one earlier on in the year.
I feel like I was actually noticing that, and I was saying, like, wow, you know what? He didn't even have any saves this past week. Usually he's pretty dangerous around the relief pitching, and I think in this case I actually match up a little bit better than him this week.
Yeah. We'll jump over to Nick's team here as we get things moving. Nick went 7 for 31. That's a 226 batting average, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts. The 2 doubles, the 2 homers, and the 9 RBIs obviously all play because they would flip categories for him. One of them is Luis Urias on the 13th. DJ LeMahieu was playing second base. Rhys Hoskins went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts at first base. LeMahieu has first base eligibility. Rhys Hoskins had an awful week this week. This is a guy that you draft really high, hoping that he's going to be the protection for Harper. He only had 1 hit this week. He went 1 for like 21. Just abysmal week. The other one is there were a couple of homers on the bench. I didn't see a way to get those in, but a Josh Naylor start on Saturday is another way to get a double in there. Hoskins 0 for 3 at first base, Reyes 0 for 4 at utility, Naylor 1 for 3 with a double. At the end of the day, maybe you're not playing those guys because you believe more in Hoskins and Franmil Reyes. That's fine. You just miss out on these stats that could have played very big into Mike Sherman's season, for a team really trying to make a push. Moves this week, he made 5 of them, Nick did. Griffin Canning stream, a Merrill Kelly stream. He did pick up Dom Nunez, Josh Naylor I mentioned, and Adam Frazier, who did not play in his lineup. Key players this week for Mike. Huge week from Gleyber Torres. 323 average, 382 on base percentage. 10 runs, a double, 6 homers, 11 RBIs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. The 6 homers, you know where they came from. They came from a 3-homer game against Baltimore early in the week on a doubleheader. Pete Alonso, 480 average, 567 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 10 RBIs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 2 errors. And finally, Danny Santana, 273 average and on base, 5 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 9 strikeouts, and 2 errors. I hit on guys that won him doubles and RBIs. I do want to give credit to Malik Smith, who got him 3 steals and hit 412 with a 444. He did win steals as well. Pitching-wise, Andrew Chafin is about the only redeeming reliever on his team this week. 3 relief appearances, all clean, 4 2/3, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 0.86 whip. Clayton Kershaw gave him a great 7-inning, 10 strikeout shutout performance with an 0.29 whip. The start was in Miami. And finally, German Marquez gave him a good start as well. 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, a 3.60 ERA, a 1.20 whip with a homer and a walk. That start was at home against Miami. Looks like some of these guys are beating up on Miami. Mike won innings, wins, strikeouts, whip, and relief appearances, so that's why I highlight those guys. We move to Nick's team. Nick, to his credit, had Elvis Andrus, 267 average, 290 on base, 2 steals, 2 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and an error. Nick ended up winning walks and strikeouts on base percentage and runs scored. I highlight Elvis Andrus because he's just that type of pesky hitter where he's not going to strike out very much. He's going to get on base as often as he possibly can, obviously. He can't work as many walks as you would have liked this week, but at the end of the day, he's gonna do what Nick needs him to do at a fairly shallow position of shortstop for his team. DJ LeMahieu, just continues to be awesome. 423 average, 464 on base, 6 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And finally, Miguel Sano, 304 average, 467 on base, 10 runs, a double, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, 7 walks, 8 strikeouts, going back to the runs, the walks, and the on-base percentage that he won. Pitching-wise, Ken Giles got him a save. He did win saves 2-0. Ken Giles was the better closer this week. 2 relief appearances, 3 strikeouts, a walk, 2 innings, an .050 whip. The other save came from Daniel Hudson, who might be taking over while Doolittle is on the DL. 3 innings, 3 relief appearances, 5 strikeouts, a .133 whip. And finally, Jake DeGrom gave him a Jake DeGrom start. 7 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, an .071 whip. Start came in Kansas City. Kind of a revenge game for 2015, you think?
No, I don't. But, it's still nice to see an important game for him to pitch.
Absolutely. Sunday, the only thing that happened on Sunday is Nick unties the wins with an Anthony Swarzak win late. And Sherman left Clevenger on the bench, who would have given him a win in 10 strikeouts. But, he runs the risk if Clevenger gets beat up of losing, losses as well as, possibly destroying his whip that he was winning there.
Right. And also ERA was close, so maybe that might have made it worse.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
Just taking that risk didn't seem worth it for him.
Yeah. With that, we will move on.
Well, let's talk about it because we got a guy in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We do have Sherman. He's coming up against you this week, Benji, and you have the opportunity here to put this Cinderella story to rest. Tell me how you're going to do it.
I guess I just got to do it with what's gotten me this far, and that's having good pitching, basically, and hitting just enough. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like Mike has been all around too dangerous, except for the batting average is right there at the top of 275. I understand that he has Pete Alonso, maybe because he hit 480 or whatever he hit this week. Maybe he cools down a little bit. Maybe Torres cools down a little bit. It seems like his best players did what they were supposed to do this week. So I kind of have to hope that the opposite happens. As for him, he's gotta hope that they can just keep going with it. I feel like he's at this hope for a 3-0 for the next 3 weeks, or it's over. Because I don't see you necessarily losing 3 in a row. I don't necessarily see Chris Levy losing 3 in a row. They're on the outside. Him and Bobby are on the outside looking in. They're basically in the same position. Mm-hmm. Mike is thinking if he can beat me, then all of a sudden he goes against Bobby, and it sets up a miraculous, awesome week 22 against you. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. Right now, all the hitting, basically right in the middle, 9-10 runs. Really low in the doubles. He's 4-14 against opponents. 12-5 with home runs. 10-9 in RBIs. 12-6 in stolen bases. 7-11 in walks. 4-14 strikeouts. His team strikes out a ton. He's got a lot of guys that do that. Yeah. 5-12 in errors. His team doesn't defend well, even though he has a very short lineup. We talked about how Mike leads our league in errors. 9-10 in batting average. 10-9 in on base. That's basically in the middle towards the bottom. I feel like the pitching, a little bit different story. 14-5 in innings pitched, 8-5 in wins, 9-7 in losses, 7-10 in saves, 11-7 in home runs given up, 7-11 in walks given up, 10-9 in strikeouts, 12-7 in ERA, 11-8 in WHIP, 12-4 in relief appearances, a little bit with the pitching. So I think that's what we're basically going to be matching up, who can have the better pitching. Yep. And I think that's going to be the difference.
It will be an epic matchup. 2 former champions going at it. We shall see where this matchup ends up by next week, and whether Sherman's miraculous season continues, or if this is the roadblock. This is the end of the line for him. You could certainly end this with a good solid win.
You're absolutely right. I think you nailed it on the head, man. It's either a continuation of his story or the story is over. You're right.
Yep, it's a must-win for him. For Nick, he gets Uncle Barry this week, Andy next week, and Chris Levy in the final week. So a couple of matchups in the consolation bracket shuffling, and then he gets the opportunity to spoil Chris Levy if Chris can make it that far by that point. Obviously some things will have to break right for Chris in order to make that matchup mean something other than, bracket shuffling for the consolation bracket. We'll see. We will see. All right, let's get to the final matchup this week. It will be Andy Solar Greco Gudrum Fundies taking on Korean Barbecue Frank Bucco, and Andy gets a good win here, 13-8. Close categories this week. Andy wins by a steal, 2 strikeouts, a loss, and 2 saves. Frank wins by an error. I'm sorry, they tied in errors. Frank wins by 1 win. For Andy on his bench, I didn't even total this up. Hang on one second. Okay, we're back. Mike went 9 for 34 on his bench. That's a 265 average. 4 runs, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. None of it matters. Well, the 6 strikeouts, but again, he'd have to get, 3 of them in order to get him in. The big thing that I do want to point out, Rafael Devers on Tuesday went 6 for 6 with 4 doubles, 3 RBIs, a run scored. He was a machine this week. Otherwise, he missed a relief appearance. Doesn't matter. Not a whole lot of anything that he could have missed offensively, because offensively he pretty much dominated other than walks. Just a fantastic week for Andy. He only made 1 roster move as well. He dropped Colton Wong, picked up Ian Happ. Cool. Moving on. For Frank this week, I've talked in the past quite a bit about Frank and his roster, and we've talked about it on the show, how he makes too many, he leaves himself with too many decisions and way too much on his bench. You know what he went on the bench this week?
I don't know. Nothing.
0 for 1 with a strikeout.
Okay.
He does have a bunch of guys on Sunday that are on his bench, but he added them after those games ended, so I can't count all of that. Obviously those moves are for today to fill his roster. At the end of the day, 0 for 1 with a strikeout. Take it. You got every single drop that you could out of this offense this week. The unfortunate part is you ran into a really strong offense this week, and it just didn't match up well. His moves...
but it just didn't seem like 242 was going to match up against anyone. I mean, in this case, it's good to not have that many decisions, but if your guys don't perform and they don't produce and don't give you the type of numbers that you need, and it just didn't seem like he was getting that. I mean, it's fine to bat 242, but then you got to hit more than 10 home runs.
Yeah.
You got to drive in more than 21 RBIs. There's got to be a little bit more production on the other side if you can't make it happen, if you consider hitting consistently. And even if he batted up against a 260 team, it wasn't going to be that much. So, unfortunate. It's worked out for him in a couple of weeks where he had the short bench. In this case, maybe these weren't the right guys to have this week.
Yeah, and he made 3 big pickups in the middle of the week on Thursday on the short day. Picked up Tucker Barnhart, picked up Jake Lamb, picked up Josh Reddick. Those guys went a combined 0 for 7 with a strikeout. So there's just tough luck. You try, you add the guys you think you believe in on that day. You believe in the matchups, and they just don't perform. And
no doubt. But we're talking about a guy that has consistently made a lot of moves throughout the week, and I don't know if he maxed out this week or not.
He did.
But what I will say is that when you're doing things like that, then you think about, sometimes it's the move that you don't make that wins you a stat or wins you the week.
Yeah. The one move I bet he wants to have back is on Wednesday the 14th. He picked up Brian McCann to fill his catcher spot. You know who he dropped? Yusei Kikuchi, who threw a complete game 2 days later.
Yeah. There you go again. It was the move. It's sometimes the move you don't make, and you want to just hold on to your guy. It's easy to fill the lineup. We can all look at matchups and fill the lineup, and sometimes you hit gold.
Yep.
But, I mean, sometimes it's a trap. And it's happened to me a bunch of times where I just grab a guy and he ends up being the guy that goes 0 for 6 out of all the guys that I could have picked.
Yep.
So, in this case, not a lot of luck with Frank with the pickups. Did he max out?
He did max out only because he picked up guys at the end of the week to play today. One of those being Wilmer Flores, who is not in the lineup today for Arizona. So
yeah,
it sucks.
That's why I didn't mess with that. I was thinking that also because Jake Lamb was a possibility. So like there was a couple of Diamondbacks where I was just like, well, I don't know which one's going to be starting or not.
Right.
So I'll just leave it that big.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, Frank, pitching wise, Frank did okay. He got a good start out of Andrew Heaney that he streamed, but at the same time, he streamed Hector Santiago and Martin Perez. They did not perform very well for him. He got a ton of relief appearances, ended up winning a bunch of categories on the pitching side, which helps make this a 13-7 loss for him rather than it being a complete blowout. Seeing the offensive kind of domination that Andy put on him. He wins by a win. You can count that to the Andrew Heaney stream. But by and large, 12 homers, 23 walks, that's not going to play. The 5 losses, maybe that's competitive some weeks, but it's not going to keep up. We'll jump to key players this week. For Andy, Rafi Devers was a machine. 593 average, 633 on base, 7 runs, 7 doubles, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, and an error. Mike Yastrzemski gave him a great week as well. 381 average, 409 on base, 5 runs, a triple, which won him the category, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. And finally, J.D. Davis, 375 average, 412 on base, a run, 2 RBIs, a steal, which is the only steal of the matchup, and wins him the category, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. The combination of Devers, Yastrzemski, and Seager alone had as many homers and more RBIs than Frank's whole team all week.
It's brutal.
It is.
Yeah, 3 guys carrying a team. That's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, when a guy like Yastrzemski, who, is now coming along but hasn't done it the whole season, that's got to be frustrating for Frank.
Yeah. I'm sure Frank owned him at some point. No, he didn't.
I did. I know I did, and I know quite a few people did. I know Jason Ashby did at one point, and the guy hit a triple. It's a triple and 4 bombs. That's tough. It's tough to compete with.
Yeah. Yep. Pitching wise for Andy, it's difficult for me to say this, but Edwin Diaz is a key player this week. 3 relief appearances, 2 1/3. He gets a save, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Did not give up an earned run this week. Thank you. A 1.29 whip.
But he did walk in with somebody else's Mets and didn't really pitch great. But I guess it doesn't go against your ERA.
Right.
But
the reason I highlight him,
and one really long foul ball that was a few feet from being a home run.
Yeah,
I remember that as well.
Yeah, he did get a save. Andy won the saves category 2-0. So I'll also hit on Raisel Iglesias, who got 1 relief appearance, got the save. He gave up a run, though, in the process, so a 6.75 ERA over an inning and a third. And finally, Domingo Germán, who's been just a fantastic pickup for him all season. 7 innings, a win, 2 homers, a walk, 7 strikeouts, 2.57 ERA, 0.86 whip. At the end of the day, Andy didn't pitch all that great. He pitched to a 5.72 ERA with a 1.59 whip. It's kind of difficult to find guys who pitch well when you pitch to that poor a performance. But these 3 guys won him categories. Germán, with his only 1 walk, does help him win the walks category by 3. For Frank, Carlos Correa had a really weird week. Carlos Correa hit 0.87 for the week, but he had a 313 on base percentage.
23 or 2 for 24,
yeah,
by the way.
It was just a weird week because, he only hit 0.87. But he had 313 on base percentage with 7 big walks that won him that category. And those 2 hits you talked about were 2 homers with 3 runs, 3 RBIs, and 2 strikeouts on the week. Which means he only struck out twice this week. In a week where he only got 2 hits.
Yeah, he's putting the bat on the ball. Just no results.
That's the type of guy you look at and you go, that guy's about to break out. He's going to have a ridiculous week coming up. I would be certainly frightened to face him if I was, whoever is playing the Astros. Detroit's coming up. The Angels are coming up. Those aren't great pitching teams. That's the type of guy I would be frightened to see in the lineup.
Yeah.
Josh Donaldson gave him a good week as well. 476 average, 560 on base, 6 runs, a double, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. The guy's been absolutely lights out since Frank traded for him. I can't say a bad word about him right now. Nick Castellanos.
And by the way, we mentioned Al these 2 weeks in a row before this. So that trade worked out for Frank. I mean, I shouldn't say we because I defended him, but he got chewed out for that one.
He did.
And it's turning out that it was the right move. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, Albie's had a bad week, but, it's the first one since the trade, so, everybody's due to have a down week. Nick Castellanos did have a good week for him as well. 304, 360 on base, 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. I talked about it when we were talking about the trade. Like, this dude deserved to be on his team for much of the year. And now that he's in Chicago, this, I heard it somewhere that this could be much like when the Tigers traded away JD Martinez to the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks went on that ridiculous run because JD was just hitting the shit out of the ball. This could be a similar comparison. This could be a similar situation here.
I like that comparison. And it didn't work out, but I'll also say, because it's just another outfielder. If I want to bring you way back, 2004. The Mets tried to bring in Richard Hidalgo for that reason, and they went they did okay, but it wasn't enough. But same idea. A
more recent and more successful and true to our heart comparison, Yoenis Cespedes in 2015.
Yes, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. That said, if you're going to trade for an outfielder, go to the Tigers. They apparently traded away really good outfielders.
Yeah, it just seems like it, but that was it, just Castellanos this year.
Yep.
And we thought that maybe this guy would be kind of getting into a platoon role because we know how Joe Madden manages.
Mm-hmm.
But, Jason Hayward, he was coming up limb in a couple days, so that gave Castellanos more at-bats. And the more he hits, the more he's going to play.
Absolutely.
So, as far as Frank goes, I don't think he has to worry about this guy having too many days off. It seems like he's the main guy in there.
Yeah, he hasn't had a day off since the trade. He's batting second every day. He's got a great lineup behind him now where it's not an aging Miguel Cabrera and a bunch of nobodies you've never heard of. Behind him now.
And I saw him hunt the fastball yesterday and take yards.
Yep.
I know that he's going to be seeing those kinds of pitches. And if he's going to be aggressive, he's going to be successful.
Yeah, with a big lefty bat like Rizzo behind him and then Baez or Bryant behind him, that is a lineup built to play in the playoffs now. And, they've got to win the division, though. They've got to get there. And this is going to be a huge piece to get there.
Yeah.
Let's go to Frank's pitchers real quick because he did win a bunch of pitching stats, and I'm sure he's deserving of some praise here. Joe Musgrove, a guy I dropped when he went through his shit. 7 1/3, 9 strikeouts, 2.45 ERA, 0.55 WHIP, no walks. That's the big thing about Joe Musgrove. He walks guys a lot and gives up homers a lot. And this was a good start. Granted, his last 2 were pretty bad. The start against the Mets where he just got absolutely tattooed, and then the start against St. Louis was not good either. But this was a good one. He gets Washington later this week, so we'll see if he's able to keep it going. John Gray, 8 innings, a win, 7 strikeouts. At 0.63 WHIP, nothing earned. John Gray has given Frank a couple of good starts this year. This one actually is in his lineup because earlier in the season he has benched John Gray in some matchups, and I don't blame him.
I think it was like in Colorado against the Dodgers.
Yes.
He had a good game. It was only a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. But he has missed out on a couple of other good starts from him as well. And again, I don't blame him if he's at home because you can't trust John Gray at home. You can't trust any Colorado pitcher at home. And finally, Andrew Heaney, the one that he streamed, 7 innings, a win, 2 homers, 6 strikeouts, a 3.86 ERA, and 0.57 WHIP. That start comes against the White Sox. It was a good start. I was eyeing up that start as well, and Frank got to him before I did. So kudos to Frank for that one. Going forward, these are two spoiler teams. So let's see where they're going to be and whose seasons they have the opportunity to ruin. Starting with Frank. Frank gets Chris Levy this week, Mike Haber next week, James McCloskey the following week. So every week he's going to get somebody. So we'll see if he's able to.
And the first one is really fun because it's whether we're going to see Frank have this kind of hitting performance, or is he going to turn it all around like he did a couple of weeks ago? So I think that Chris is banking on the fact that he's been in this league since 2014. He's been there a little bit now, quite a bit. A much more desperate team. Frank is going to be trying his ass off. I know that. I know he wants to spoil the rest of the way. I know he wants to find a way in the consolation bracket. But tall task for sure for Frank. I like Frank's chances. I would not want to face Frank this week because he had a cold week.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd rather face a team that just had their hot week. That's me, though. Some people don't want to mess with that because chances are they're staying hot. So, for me, I think that Frank is a slight favorite here, just because I believe in the law of averages. But again, like I said, I do want Chris to get a win somehow just so he can stay in this race. And then going forward for Frank, the one against Mike Haber not as critical, and then James McCloskey could mean a lot.
It depends. It depends on what James does in the 2 weeks preceding.
Right.
Yeah. For Andy, he gets Jimmy Dunlap this week, Nick Homan in 21, and finishes out the season against you. The Jimmy Dunlap match could be very important. Like we just said with Chris.
This matchup is just going forward. These two guys, their actual matchups for this week are extremely exciting and extremely pivotal.
Yeah. It'll be. If Andy can hit like he hit this week, I think Jimmy's in trouble.
Yeah.
No,
Jimmy's he's been a sinking ship.
Yep.
As his namesake says so. So I hope for the best for him. I'd like to see him come away with a win against the spoiler just to make his season a little more interesting. But I guess we're going to see what happens.
Yep, we shall see. All right, that will do it for the matchup reviews. Benny, let's get to best and worst of the week. Let's start with the best starts of the week. Go ahead and give me yours.
Well, I'm going to start with Clayton Kershaw. There was a couple of guys I was considering. Ryan Yarborough for Jason's team. He went 6 2/3 and got 10 strikeouts. Didn't get the win. The reason why I picked Clayton Kershaw here is of his scoreless 7 innings for the win, 10 strikeouts, no walks, a .29 whip. It was against Miami. The reason I pick it is because Michael actually won that category 4-3 the win. So that win by Clayton Kershaw does play big.
Very good, very good. I'm going to give it to Bobby's stream of Yusei Kikuchi on Sunday, the complete game shutout. He absolutely needed that complete game to stay in the hunt here, taking the pretty bad loss to Jason this week. But he salvages something here. Every stat matters. Getting a complete game here on Sunday from Kikuchi is huge. The other one I'll just touch on momentarily, where I already hit on it, Ivan Nova's complete game against Houston for Jimmy. Let's go to best offensive performance. Go ahead and give me that one for you.
Yeah, I'll also throw in, by the way, that we mentioned just before that the John Gray performance was really impressive and just didn't play as much. For the best performance, I'm going with the guy that I traded away, man. I was considering Michael Brantley, but it was just how pivotal Jose Ramirez was in this matchup. 4 runs, 2 doubles, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, a .348 average, .423 on base. It definitely won him home runs. It definitely got him much better in the RBI category. So I picked the guy because I basically feel like it saved James' season. I think if James takes a bigger loss to Mike Haber here, it might be done so for his season. And I really think with the runs that he scored, with the home runs, this guy has saved his butt.
Yep. I'm going to give it to Rafi Devers here in this Andy versus Frank matchup. 593 average, 633 on base, 7 runs, 7 doubles, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 2 errors. The 2 errors, he doesn't lose that category. He ends up tying that. The 11 RBIs are more than half of what Frank's total RBIs are. The 7 doubles are more than half of what Frank's total doubles are. The homers play, the runs play. It was just a top to bottom fantastic week from Rafi Devers, and the 6-for-6 game was a pleasure to watch. It was so much fun to see this young kid, left-handed bat, who's going to be a dynamic player for the Red Sox going forward.
I can't believe he already has 100 runs and 100 RBIs, and we're not through August. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, he leads the league in RBIs right now. He took over the lead from Josh Bell. Like, Josh Bell had 90 RBIs back in July. He's been ice cold for a month now. I do want to hit on 2 other guys real quick. JT Realmuto was really good against you. 417, 445 runs, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, a walk, and 5 strikeouts. And
that wore the fuck out of me.
Yeah. And Mike Sherman getting Gleyber Torres to play in Baltimore this week and have 6 homers and 11 RBIs and 10 runs scored. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Let's jump to worst of the week. Worst start for you this week, Benji.
Well, not to be outdone by Cole Hamels on the same fantasy team who had 2 innings, a loss, a home run given up, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 36 ERA, and a 5.50 whip. I'm actually going to give it to his fantasy teammate on Josh Haber's team. We talked about this trade with Donaldson and Albies, the guy that went in the other direction. Frank traded away Julio Teheran that didn't even go through 2 innings. He pitched an inning in the 3rd for the loss. He gave up the home run, the 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 40 ERA, 40.5 to be exact, an 8.25 whip. That's just awful, and it just seems like Frank's prediction of what Teheran would do in August. He didn't even need the crystal ball. He knew.
Yeah, I mean, that's his guy, right? It's his team. He knows how his team's going to perform. He knows how his starter is going to perform down the stretch. He's been watching him for years. So credit to Frank. You know, I'll eat my words. That trade was far better than I gave it credit for.
Because pitching is important in our league.
Yes.
So, we ultimately think about that, but at the same day, when Teheran's terrible, it just ruins your entire year. So sometimes, certain pitching is important as it is for a week, it can screw you just as well. Yeah,
absolutely. For my bad starts this week, I mean, if we're not going to count openers, then I can't count Frank's start of Chad Green, who went a 1/3 of an inning, gave up a grand slam to Jose Ramirez, a 135 ERA and a 15 whip. That was ugly. Yet Frank still won ERA and whip. So I'm going to give him credit where it's due. He has that on his team, and he still wins that. Pause 1 moment. Got to call Benji back. Okay, so yeah, I mean Frank getting Chad Green's start in his lineup and still winning ERA and whip is a testament to what he was capable of doing this week. But since I can't count that one, I'm gonna go with Trevor Bauer, the guy I traded away. He had a start on Wednesday for Andy's team in Washington. 4 1/3, took the loss, 2 homers, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, an 18.69 ERA, a 2.31 whip. To get Justin Verlander for this guy and Jorge Polanco, I'll take it. Worst hitting performance for you this week, Benji?
Well, this guy went 2 for 21 on Uncle Barry's team. That's Yadier Molina. That stands as a .95 average, .95 on base percentage. He did score 3 runs, which is just not enough to take Jimmy. Jimmy won that category by 1. 1 RBI, 5 strikeouts, just a poor performance from his catcher. He needed a little bit more, just to at least tie a category or win one.
Yeah. I would give it to Whit Merrifield on Jason's team, but Jason won big, so I'm not going to go there. I can give it to the same matchup, 2 different guys on either side of the matchup. We're going to go to Mike Sherman's team first. I'm going to give it to Mike Tauchman. at the end of the day, Mike Tauchman is a guy you picked up off a waiver wire, and he was really hot. This week, 111, 158 on base, a run, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. It's just not going to get it done from what is, kind of your platoon and starting right fielder now with, McNeil going down and, a bunch of other injuries. His outfield is really thin now. And it's Tauchman, it's Malik Smith, and it's Ronald Acuna. And without Acuna, this outfield is awful.
Yeah, and I wonder how Acuna is going to react from being benched after the non-running out thing.
Yep.
So, maybe that messes with his head. I'm hoping it kind of does.
I would be feeling the same way. For Nick, on that side of the coin, I'm going to give it to Rhys Hoskins, who hit .059, a 190 on base, 3 runs, an RBI, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Again, this is a dude you have to have perform if you are going to have any success. And he's had an okay season, but he's only hit .237, right? If you want to compare first baseman between the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets, I don't think there's much of a comparison right now. We've got this rookie kid who, much like Rhys Hoskins 2 years ago, was that rookie who came up and hit 25 homers in like 3 months. He was fantastic. And I remember Ari picking him up that year and riding him into the playoffs, and he was great. And
oh yeah, Ari went all the way to the semis that year.
Yeah,
yeah, and that was the reason why he drafted him.
Absolutely. So to find this guy now only hitting .237 in a lineup with Gene Segura and JT Realmuto and Bryce Harper, and that lineup was supposed to be so incredibly stacked. This team is in 4th place right now.
I think technically we're in the same spot, but I could be wrong. We seem to flip-flop every day.
We're in a dead heat with them for 3rd place, 64 and 60. This is not where you saw the Phillies when the season started. They signed Bryce Harper. You're like, oh, they're winning the division. No, they're not.
Well, the question I have to you is which one of these teams can? Because I'm assuming maybe 87 wins. If you think, I don't know if you and I agree, maybe 87 wins the wild card. So 23 and 15 the rest of the way. Between the Mets and the Phillies, which one can go about 23 and 15 the rest of the way? They're playing each other a couple times. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
It's a homer pick, man. I'm gonna pick the Mets because our pitching is better.
Yeah, I would think that's a good reason to pick them, though. If they're going to stay healthy, and they're, God forbid they don't, but, just handing the ball to the next one each day, I like our chances up against the next guy that's pitching.
Yeah. All right, Benji, it is that time of the week once again. Let's get your manager of the week, sir.
Okay, this was almost impossible to pick, and going into our discussion today, I was just hoping that through your statistics, finding out what was left on the bench, it would make my decision a little bit easier. I was really tempted to pick certain guys like Chris Levy. I'd say he was right on the cusp, but we had a little bit of a discussion on certain things that could have been done maybe a little better. But what seemed to be the least amount on his bench and the most work done was Jimmy Dunlap to me. Doing what he had to do to take care of business. I understand that he barely loses batting average 298 to 284. I understand he loses relief appearances by 1. I understand he loses walks given up by 1. But like we said, he kind of just played to the score. Got the, he saw the 5.37 ERA. He could play just under it with his 5 ERA. And I really think just because there's very little offense on the bench, it's hard to bet against him. He did what he had to do to stay in this race, so I'm giving it to Jimmy.
All right. I'm going to go in another direction, and I'm going to go with a guy who was actually losing his matchup on Thursday, after Thursday was over. So coming into Friday, from that moment until the end of the weekend, this guy turned around 7 stats? It's going to be Jason Ashby. Jason was losing 8. He was losing 9-8 after Thursday and ends up winning this thing 15-6. And just, you look at how he was able to flip runs and triples and RBIs and steals and still faces up against Bobby, who throws a streamed complete game and still takes it down 15-6. Without Bobby's complete game, This is 15-5. It might be 15-4. You know, you're looking at a completely different world, and this solidifies, in my opinion, Jason just mushing in my face that I said he was going to be the odd guy out here. I think he's in. Like, I think this is the win he absolutely needed. You know, you always look for these lopsided wins late in the season. This is it for Jason. Congratulations, Jason.
I know. He mushed in your face from then, and he's going to try to mush in your face even more this week as you guys go head-to-head, toe-to-toe. So, you know, all these managers were great. You know, it just comes down to it when you see, like, for instance, Jimmy facing Uncle Barry, a guy that's going to be managing so hard against him. You see him, like, pull it out the way he did. You know, there's just so many reasons why you and I will pick a manager and say, like, this guy, you know, earned it, you know, even with his opponent doing this and that, whether it was not managing enough or over management, but, like, either way, like, both of these managers took care of business.
Yeah. Well, that is week 19 for the Bigs, gentlemen. Benji, thank you once again for hosting with me every single week. Love doing this with you. Can't wait to do it again next week.
Oh, thanks for having me back, man. Yeah, it's been great banter all around, great discussion, great debates. A guy by the name of Chris Levy texted me yesterday and said, this is the most fun I've ever had in a fantasy season. He's been here since 2014, but yeah, Chris, like when you have a season the way that you're having, when you're right in the middle of things, you know, just on the outside looking in, but it's exciting as ever, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy for all these guys that are just having a great time with this, battling it out, competing, stressing out about it. Yeah, no question about it, but it's exciting nonetheless, and thank God we throw no money on this because it'd be a whole lot worse.
My goodness, would people be losing their minds if there was money on the line? That being said, fellas, we'll be back again next week with Week 20's review. Again, if you want to come on the show, let us know. Chris, come on the show, man. Tell us all about how happy you are this season. Tell us all about, you know, what you've done on your team. Anybody, come on the show. It'll be a great time. Until next time, boys, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the Bigs. See you soon.